I understand that the Germans had a meeting to decide whether or not the British were breaking their codes, and at the end of the day they said we weren't capable of it. Thank you very much. Well, I was studying at Radbrook College near Shrewsbury. We had a certain amount of cookery, secretarial work as well, but it was everything to do with running a house. Things were beginning to look ugly, and we were very conscious of the fact that we were just making sausage rolls, if you like, and things like that. And other people were joining up and doing what we felt was something better towards the war effort. I joined the ATS and did the basic training up at Wrexham. And then after you've done your basic training in how to drill, how to wear your uniform, how to behave towards your elders and betters, you're then asked which trade you would like to go for. And they gave us a list. As far as I can remember, it was something like driver, cook, orderly, gunner. Well, I didn't fancy any of it and didn't know what I should go for, so I gathered that they read my CV again and found that I'd been educated in German, and so I think that was why I was sent to London to be interviewed by an intelligence corps officer. And following about an hour's talk with him in German, he gave me a railway warrant and said, get yourself to Bletchley. Of course, at that stage, I had no idea, A, where Bletchley was, and certainly no idea what went on and what I would expect to be doing. There were two of us, actually. One who I met on the train, she'd escaped from Belgium, literally escaped. And we were taken to a billet at New Bradwell, I think it was, one of the railway towns anyway, near Wolverton. And we were shown into a room and discovered that not only did we share a room, we had to share a bed, which was a bit embarrassing. And the further embarrassment was that in those days, you can imagine, there was very little plumbing, and the facilities were up the garden, which was a bit of a shock. But the following morning, we were taken by bus down to Bletchley and taken into the mansion to read and sign the Official Secrets Act. That was a rather overwhelming introduction. Well, after signing the Official Secrets Act, I then had to come to terms with myself as to how I was going to cope with it. And there's only one answer to that. You do as you're told. End of story. And I went out of the mansion thinking, oh my gosh, I am cut off. It was a very strange feeling, actually. Very difficult to describe. There was one incident where a couple of girls forgot their promise not to say anything, and they were chatting in Wilton House, which is where we ate anyway, and I understand that they were not seen again. No, I mean, they obviously knew I was in the ATS. They didn't know I was at Bletchley because I wasn't able to tell them. Dad had been in the First World War in India, and I think he knew better than to ask. He knew I was in the army. They knew I was wearing an Intelligence Corps badge, which we all did. And if I was asked what I was doing, I just said, a boring secretarial job. Change the subject. My responsibility was to register all the messages which had come through from our signal staff all over the country and all over the world. And the messages had to be indexed in a way that the code breakers could call on any particular date. And apart from the date in the left-hand corner of all the messages, there was absolutely nothing in the clear. All we had to go on was the date. At my level, we had no idea of the processing which had to go on in order to get from the messages which were taken down by our signal people to the end product, which was where do the messages go, having been registered, decoded, translated, transcribed, analysed. It was a big operation. It took a very long time. I understand that the Germans had a meeting to decide whether or not the British were breaking their codes, and at the end of the day they said we weren't capable of it. Thank you very much. There was a three-shift system for a lot of people. I didn't always do it, but when I did, it was from 8 till 4, 4 to midnight, and midnight to 8. It was very tiring because it was very repetitive. In a word, it was a bore. It had to be done. The only time we had any relaxation in the early days was when the gas mask drill was on every Wednesday morning, and of course we didn't have the civilian ones, they were the heavy duty ones, the army ones, and you had to wear them for 20 minutes and continue working, which was pretty awful really, and especially in my office where Sergeant Major Tubby Roots, his name was, and he used to sing in the mood with his gas mask on. It's incredible, din, you've never had anything like it. A little bit of light relief, yes. To begin with, everybody worked in the mansion, but then it became, as the need for more staff became necessary, it also became necessary to build huts very quickly. And they were, I think it's fair to say, literally thrown together and were very, very primitive, very uncomfortable, but there had to be somewhere for people to work in because the mansion was full. It was a mansion, but very little creature comforts. I mean, very often we didn't have any heating. I remember a log fire which always went out during the night, so it was very cold. And I don't think we had we didn't have any electric fires. And then I was moved over to Block F, which was a bit more modern, and we actually had some central heating there. And nothing very elaborate, but it was rather better than the huts. There was a drama group which put something on every 3 months, I think it was, and we had a Bach choir run by Herbert Murrell, who was very professional, and we had David Warwick, who ran an orchestra, and a certain amount of sport. Tennis courts were put in on Churchill's, say so. When you're in a situation like that, you've got a common bond, even if you don't speak about it. I made friends with people I would never have met otherwise, from all walks of life, because that was the thing about Bletchley. I mean, there were people from aristocrats to dustmen almost. And it was a very good mix, actually. There were a tremendous number of university people, who obviously were the more important ones. Linguists, mathematicians, chess players, librarians, I understand now, were picked out. And in the main, we got on well together because we were all suffering the same situation. And, long hours and indifferent food, either terribly hot or terribly cold, depending on the weather. I remember it was a very nice, friendly, a friendly atmosphere. I think it was late 70s when Professor Hinsley had a gathering, and that was when we began to have gatherings where we could talk about what we'd been doing and interchange knowledge. It was probably only 4 or 5 years ago that I was told that I was actually registering messages in connection with the Holocaust. That's something I've put together, having talked to other people since and having read a lot of books on the subject, and going to reunions where we were subsequently allowed to talk about what we'd been doing. Well, I don't think there's any doubt that it saved us from invasion. It's very difficult to assess it at my level, but it's quite obvious that without it, we wouldn't be sitting here comfortably now. It is a long time ago, and you don't remember everything, but quite a lot I do. The sad thing is, of course, that there isn't anyone alive now whom I knew at the time. But I've made friends since with earlier veterans, and there's an extraordinary bond, something that is quite, to me, quite unusual and unrepeatable.